But the second, Britain lays to rest its longest-serving monarch to mark the end of a reign that defined an era.
The Queen's lifelong sense of duty has been remembered at her state funeral service at Westminster Abbey. 2,000 people, including world leaders and royalty, attended the funeral, and crowds lined the streets for the procession of the coffin. King Charles III led the somber procession behind his mother's coffin from Westminster's Hall to the Abbey. A small committal ceremony attended by about 800 guests was held at the St. George's Chapel in Windsor Castle. Guns were fired and bells tolled to mark the Queen's arrival in Windsor after he travelled there from London. King Charles, Princess Anne, Princes Andrew and Edward, as well as Princes William and Harry, walked behind the hearse in the final procession. Before the Queen's body was taken for burial next to her husband of more than 70 years at a private family service, earlier, the Dean of Westminster, Reverend David Hoyle, began the morning service at the Abbey by speaking of the Queen's answering commitment to a high calling over so many years as Queen and the head of the Commonwealth. The congregation sang the Lord's My Shepherd, a hymn sung at the wedding of the Queen of the late Duke of Edinburgh, which was also held at the Abbey. The phrase was used by the Queen in a rare address to the nation at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. As the Abbey service came towards its end, the last post was played by the same musicians who performed it at the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral. The nation came to a standstill for 2 minutes of silence. A piper then played a traditional lament before the king stood silently as the national anthem was sung. Among the personal touches was a handwritten message from the king, which was placed on top of the coffin in a wreath of flowers cut from the gardens of Buckingham Palace, Highgrove House and Clarence House at his request. The Queen's death marks the end of a 70-year reign that defined an era. Brian Amwai, Lookup TV.
The increased high cost of fuel has now affected the entire country. This is not just about motorists, as every citizen survives on the facilitation of goods and services by petroleum.
Kenyans across the country will be forced to dig deeper into their pockets after government subsidy on the fuel prices, which led to the Energy Regulatory Commission (EPRA) to raise its price bar on the product. On a sunny afternoon, we meet Rehema Cherop, a resident in Kawangware area in Nairobi, who's on a kerosene hunt to fuel her little stove.
Stove natumia, nanunua mafuta ya 1 liter, naweza tumia siku 4, siku 3. Sina option nyingine ati naweza sema nachukua gas nichase, gas iko juu, pesa hakuna, kila kitu hakuna.
The flames from the stove must achieve its objective by the end of the cooking process, since Cherop lacks any other alternative but the daily 20 to 30 shillings spendings, which she finds quite demanding.
Sasa sababu sina auction, nichakamua, ninunua mafuta kidogo, kila siku tu hivyo tu. Sababu sina hata wasi, lazima nichikakamue, ninunue yenye naweza. Yenye najua hii natumia, kesho tena ama jioni, ninunue najua yenye natumia.
As the waves for the task becomes unbearable, she hopes that the new government led by President William Ruto will intervene to lower the cost of living.
Mimi naomba serikali warudishe vitu chini. Sababu hii president mwenye ameingia amepata uchumi iko juu. Sasa yeye na achikase arudishe chini.
On the other side, Catherine Kathini was forced to shift from fuel usage to find other means that will be favorable.
Nilikuwa nunua useme kwa wiki 400, nilikuwa natumia 400 kununua mafuta ya stove. Sasa nikaona hiyo mafuta ya stove nikununua kila wiki 400 na gas nikirefill ito overdraft. Sasa nikaona hiyo gas namaliza more than 1 month na sasa kwa nikitumia stove na maliza karibu 1600 per month. Sasa nikaona ni expensive sana.
Last month, the government promised to pump more money into the fuel subsidy. The state's move will save consumers from spending more than 200 shillings per litre on the 3 petroleum products. Speaking during an interview with one of the local TV stations, the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua seems to have had the Mwananchi's plea.
Looking for a permanent and sustainable solution. It would have been foolhardy and deceptive to the people of Kenya to continue with subsidizing the fuel only for a short while, and then we have an economic shutdown. We must look for a long-term solution, and I want to urge our people to be very patient, and things will work out. We don't want a solution that is temporary or is deceptive.
As the pain of increased fuel prices hits a common man, the question remains in different homes across the country. How will they be able to operate in their operations on a daily basis? Moses Okech, Lookup TV.
Members of the National Assembly today began their 5-day induction at the Safari Park Hotel in Nairobi. The induction process is aimed at taking the legislators through the operations of the House to ensure effective execution of their mandate.
Members of Parliament today thronged the Safari Park Hotel, the venue for the induction of members of the August House, chaired by Speaker Moses Wetangula. The induction is aimed at familiarizing new members with their roles in the House for proper execution of their mandate according to the Constitution. Speaking during the sessions, Central Bank of Kenya boss Dr. Patrick Njoroge indicating that they are undertaking a survey after the elections and they will forward their submissions to the National Assembly, adding that inflation had become an endemic world problem, which has contributed to Kenyans in the diaspora not remitting much money back home due to the strain of the global economy. On his part, Speaker Moses Masika Wetangula urged members to familiarize with House standing orders, insisting that members of Parliament must ensure they work for the electorate as they hold high expectations of them. Wetangula further assured the members that their welfare will be taken care of by the House, asking members to do in-depth soul-searching as they endeavor to create a legacy for the 13th Parliament.
That expectations on you are huge. A member of Parliament in your constituency, you are a funeral undertaker, you are a midwife, you are an extension officer in farming, you are a vet, you are a counselor on social issues. You literally do everything. And above all, you are also the local ATM. Yes. So my leadership will ensure that we facilitate you to discharge some of these unexpected demands from the public.
Yen Kitani, Lookup TV, Nairobi.
Saro and Gulf congregants of the Lurambi Salvation Army Church in Kakamega County after they found the lifeless body of their night guard lying at the altar. The 68-year-old guard allegedly died in his sleep as his shoes were neatly placed next to his body. According to the church preacher, Captain Muliva Mohando, the deceased has complained of body pains previously.
Shock and sorrow jam-packed the congregants of Lurambi Salvation Church after they found the body of the night guard lying at the altar lifelessly. According to Nyongesa Benson, a member of the church, both doors to the church were locked, forcing him to find other ways to access the church. Benson found the unharmed, cold body of the 68-year-old guard lying at the pulpit next to his shoes.
Sasa hivi saa 2:30 askari bado unalala. Nikasonga karibu niweze kumtazama, kweli analala. Kaona hali yake sielewi, nikatoka nikaenda nikaita afisa ambaye pia alikuja akakonfirm kwamba msee halali ni kama ameenda.
The church's preacher, Muliva Mohando, claims that the deceased had previously complained of body pains, but he sought no medical attention.
Amekuwa kwa sababu ya uzee, kwa sababu ni mzee wa umri ya miaka 68. Amekuwa akicomplain mambo ya kuumwa na mwili na kadhalika, na mara nyingi huwa ametumia tu painkillers na hajakuwa mgonjwa kiasi cha kwenda kulazwa. Na mara nyingi huwa naongea na yeye, na mara nyingi saa zingine unamwambia si uombe ruhusa, tukupe ruhusa uende ukae nyumbani kidogo, anasema hapana, sijazidiwa kiasi hicho. Na kwa hivyo amekuwa hivyo mtu wa kujikaza mpaka asubuhi ya leo ndio tumempatana naye akiwa ametuaga.
The body was transferred to Kakamega mortuary awaiting postmortem to ascertain the cause of death. Mudeundalana, Lookup TV.
Net Peace Kenya in Samburu County has organized a workshop for the youth to empower them to engage in productive ventures as opposed to banditry. This comes as insecurity escalates in the area owing to cattle rustling and highway robbery.
Learning is ongoing. A class is in progress. Students are seated jotting points from their teachers. These students are youths from Samburu County who have accepted the peace call from the Net Peace organization in abstaining from banditry and practice positive endeavors in building the community.
To have secure sources of livelihoods, because that way will contribute towards building a very stable country.
The organization's chief executive officer Kubai Kahara has stated climate change as a contributing factor in security since many are trying their ways for survival.
Because the reality is climate change has created serious vulnerabilities, and because of that we need to empower our communities to adapt to these changes in the climate, and one way is diversifying the sources of livelihood, so that, for example, in case of a drought, you do not have a situation where households are being decimated and driven into poverty because they have lost all of their livestock.
Kahara added that his program will find alternatives and foresee strategies to restructure livelihoods.
We are going to look into how we can contribute towards coping capabilities of communities and ability to adapt to alternative sources of livelihood, because again, when you look into the county, it has a huge resource potential outside the pastoralism.
Kahara amewaomba washikadau kwa ushirikiano na serikali ya kitaifa na ile ya county kuingilia kati na he has however called on interested stakeholders from the national and county government to join in. Moses Sokich, Look Up TV.
We're going to a short break now. When we come back, we'll have more news for you.
Hi there, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're watching us from. My name is Maki Wamboko, Sales Manager, Optiven Real Estate, and I'm here at our head office, Absa Towers, located at Reuters Street. Today, I'm here to talk about our newest project, that is Great Oasis Gardens, Nanyuki, and it is located only 10 minutes drive from Cedar Mall. And in this project, we have proposed that we will be having a GMC Entertainment Center. This will be a replica of what we have in Kitengela, GMC Kitengela. We are also proposing a police post, so you are assured that security, once you invest here, security is good. And we are also proposing to have a playing ground. We are also going to have a community ground. So once you invest here, you don't have to worry about the security. The other things, among the things that we are doing, or the things that we have done already in Great Oasis Gardens, we have already done the marking fence, and the roads, the internal roads are already happening. We have started the malaming the road, and we are still in the process of doing the malaming of the internal roads. And we are also sinking a borehole so that we ensure that our investors in Great Oasis Gardens, Nanyuki, will not struggle with water. We are also going to elevate a water tower so that we have a constant supply of water in this project. And we also have a caretaker on site. The caretaker is on site and he's there 24/7. And then we also have different sizes in this project. We are having 8, we are having quarters, we are having halves, and we are also having acres. One can buy in bulk, you can buy in big chunks, and that is why we are saying in Great Oasis Gardens Nanyuki, we are saying that bigger is better. In this project, what you can invest in, you can invest in private schools, you can also do holiday homes, whereby you can do Airbnb, you can also do holiday homes and then you start renting, and you can also build houses and sell. You can also do apartments in this area. You can also do supermarkets. You can also build a mall and then you start renting. There is so much that you can do in this project because it is not controlled development. We are also located along Nanyuki-Rumuruti Road, and this road is being proposed to be tarmacked by the government. So coming from Nanyuki or coming from wherever you be coming from, it will be very easy to access the project because it is touching the Nanyuki-Rumuruti Road, which is going to be tarmacked by the government. My number is +254 722 355 107. Do not be left behind. Call that number. I will work with you. If you're in Kenya, give me a call. We go for the site visit. We select the project. We start the payment. If you're in diaspora, send a representative, and I will be delighted to work with you. And as we say here in Optiven, we shine because you make us shine. God bless you. Thank you.
Welcome back. Turkana residents have raised their concerns to the government concerning the members that have been nominated by different political parties. They say some of the members are not from their county. They have now threatened to interrupt their swearing-in tomorrow.
Post-election agreements have become a thorny issue. In Turkana, things are getting out of hand, with aggrieved parties expressing their voices of discontentment in the just concluded nomination exercise. The rifts and disappointment emerged after it is alleged that different political parties nominated candidates from other counties to represent the locals.
Ile mambo ya kunyanyaswa ilipita wakati ile. Hapa Turkana kuna anasa Turkana wale wako na sisi hapa. Wenye wanapiga kura hapa. Wangekuwa wanapatia hata nomination. Sisi tukua kama Waturkana hatungekasirika, lakini utakujaje ukule ile chakula ambayo ukutoa jasho yako kwa kusema kweli.
The residents have threatened to interrupt the swearing in on Tuesday if their grievances are not heard.
Tuwezi kubali, na hata hiyo siku ya swearing in hatuwezi kubali aingie kwa bunge. Arudi kwao kwa sababu sisi hatuna kazi, hatuna mashamba. Mashamba zetu ni kazi, masomo na wanyama.
These residents are now pleading with President William Ruto to intervene in the matter.
Mheshimiwa Rais, nomination bado inaenda kwa girlfriends. Bado imekuwa ni biashara. Inaenda kwa mandugu. Sisi wenye ambaye ni wanyonge, wenye hatuna mandugu kwa IBC, wenye hatuna viongozi huku mbele wenye watatusaidia kwa chama, na ana atatusaidia.
Grace Mureithi, Lookup TV.
Still on the job, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha has called for the government to shut down all pornographic sites in the internet. Magoha, who opened the 94th Music Festival competition in Kisumu today, called on the new government to block sites that are inappropriate for children.
The outgoing Cabinet Secretary for Education, Professor George Magoha, has challenged members of the private sector to financially support learners in achieving their dreams. Magoha, who graced the 94th edition of the Kenya Music Festival at Kisumu Girls under the theme Kenya My Pride, My Future, the abrasive CS said that it was so heartbreaking seeing only a few government entities coming on board and sponsoring this year's event.
Without partnerships, it is not easy for the Ministry of Education to handle all activities of the Kenya Music Festival. I've been informed of the effort that our partners and the Executive Committee Music have put in towards nurturing.
This year's Music Festival event is marked after a 2-year break due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This year's Music Festival event is marked after a 2-year break due to the COVID-19.
I hope that the next one, even though I shall not be there, will have the top banks in there and who is who to support our children. If you cannot support the children, who do you think is going to support them? And let me tell you, those with a lot of money in the bank is like manure in the store. It's only a fool who puts manure in the store. Because manure should be in the field, helping plants to grow.
In what seemed to be his last public appearance before leaving the office, Magoha thanked former President Uhuru Kenyatta for allowing him to serve as his education CS. Magoha is expected to leave office after President William Ruto names his cabinet in a few coming days.
And I dare say that I want to thank the former president for having identified me, knowing very well that I'm very difficult to work with. I hope I have not disappointed, but I've been to so many parts of this country, and it was pleasure that perhaps my last public appearance should be just next to where I stay.
Magoha, accompanied by the Kisumu Governor Professor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o, urged the new administration to ban all pornographic sites on the internet as seen in various countries around the globe. Daniel Dembede, Look Up TV, Kisumu County.
Central Bank of Kenya has announced that out of the 288 applications for digital lending licenses in the country, it has so far only given 10 lenders the green light to operate. The regulator now says any digital lender in the country still conducting business without applying for the license as of September the 17th, 2022, is operating in contravention of the Banking Act and should stop immediately.
CBK has also announced that the process of approval of the rest of the applicants is still ongoing and urged the lenders who are yet to submit requisite documentation to do so to help speed up the process. The Central Bank of Kenya Amendment Act of 2021 became effective on December 23rd, 2021 and provided the Central Bank of Kenya with the powers to license and oversight the previously unregulated digital credit providers. The Act will, among other issues, oversight the lenders on the modalities put on place for the confidentiality of the customers. It will also look into matters licensing, with majority of Kenyans complaining they had no place for physical contact when need arises. The Act will now force the lenders to have at least one physical office as a place of business, with the books of the digital lenders finally open to the CBK. Concerns of money laundering will also be investigated easily by the CBK. Lastly, the Act will touch on the critical area of consumer protection, with majority of the lenders accused of using predatory means to collect debt, with credit information also a critical area that the CBK will oversight, with consumers complaining about the lack of proper information before borrowing. So far, as the rest of the 278 lenders are still waiting for the approval from the Central Bank of Kenya, the ones that have been given a green light are as follows: Ceres Tech Limited, Get Cash Capital, Jijenge Credit, Giando Africa, Kweli Smart Solutions, Mwanzo Credit Limited, Sokohela Limited, Sevi Innovation, Reward Zero, and My Wage Pay Limited. Digital lenders in support of the regulation have earlier expressed confidence in the process, while remaining optimistic that the Central Bank of Kenya will not regulate their interest rates. Edwin John Mukora, Look Up TV.
Flying through the streets of Central Park in the middle of the park.
In the day's sport, after a rough start, the national women's volleyball side, Malkia strikers, have finally found their rhythm after securing victory in a friendly match to win by straight sets 25-18, 25-20 and 25-11 against Serbian national team. The victory comes after the coach Moore side were thrashed by Red Star Belgrade in straight sets. The win is a morale booster for the girls, who are set to embark on their journey to Netherlands ahead of the Women's World Championships that start on the 23rd of September to the 15th of October.
After a scratch by Serbian side Red Star Belgrade, the Queens revived themselves by heading into the match victorious against the Serbian national team B. The 11-time African champions began on a high note, taking an 8-3 lead, then put a great fighting spirit to stretch their advantage to 7 points.